Right, guys, I know many of you like GB News, while others are sceptical it's just going to be another BBC in the making, or straight up controlled opposition, as some of you have said. As you know, I'm very sceptical myself, but it seems Andrew Neil has at least done something most, if not all, of these media fuckpigs avoid like the bubonic plague. That is obviously questioning this government on its climate change, green industrial revolution, bollocks, or should we now say the build back better, greener and in a more gender or feminine neutral way, as Boris the woke Wankstein put it the other day.
But also that we're building back better together and building back greener and building back fairer and building back more equal and, how shall I, more, in a more gender neutral and perhaps like a more feminine way. How about that, apart from anything else?
Now Andrew Neil this time was asking the Chancellor who's paying for this green agenda these arsewipes have decided to implement, which very few Conservative voters actually care about or indeed want. I guess that might be because these policies are closer to the Green Party policies, let's be honest, so realistically we have a woke communist Green Party government in Conservative clothing, preparing to wank a few £1 trillion of your money on making life harder. Yep, trillions, as 1 trillion is the number being quoted, but in all honesty it will obviously be a lot more than that. Naturally, Rishi Sunak doesn't want to admit it, but he does admit that the government has no money for this. As we all know, it's our money they want to use, and he admits that while also contradicting himself about the benefits. You know what, take a listen to it for yourself.
The Prime Minister has pledged that we'll be at net zero on carbon emissions by 2050. But it's a promise without a price tag. How much will it cost?
Well, I think it's hard to put a specific figure on it, and actually we're doing some work which will be published later this year.
You said it would be published in the spring. Why is it?
Yeah, well, because we want to align it with other things that are happening in government and make sure that it's a rigorous piece of work. And as I look forward in a place like Teesside with a new post-Brexit free port, I'm seeing carbon capture and storage, hydrogen. Those are the jobs of the future in a place where we want them. Right. And that gives you a sense of some of the opportunity.
But the truth is, Chancellor, and the Treasury knows this, it just won't make it public, the costs are eye-watering.
Well, of course, there are costs in transitions, and the Committee for Climate Change has talked about that.
Well, your predecessor, Philip Hammond, predecessor bar one, he sent a private note when he was Chancellor to Theresa May saying it would cost £1 trillion. £1 trillion. Is that in the ballpark?
Well, look, you know, when we go through the analysis, you'll see. But you have to remember there are also opportunities along the way as well. And I think it's wrong to look at just one side of the ledger. And we're putting investment behind it. So the government is investing. We are making sure that we can help people with that transition. Well, and we want to make sure that that transition works for people.
Well, let's look at one of the things people will have to do and what help, if any, they can expect. Households are going to have to rip out their gas boilers and replace them with more expensive heat pumps or hydrogen or whatever it is. The Climate Change Committee says that'll cost £250 billion. Others put it much higher, much higher. Who's going to pay for that?
Well, we're already actually, Andrew, investing in helping low-income households with exactly that transition.
Who pays?
Well, Andrew, as we've talked about, we all collectively pay one way or another. There's no one else who pays. So that's how this works, right?
The households may have to pay themselves, or the government will come up with a subsidy and do it, or it'll be a combination of both.
Right.
Households facing £10,000 investment, I ask again, who pays?
So when you say the alternative is the household or the government's money is people's money. And that's my point when I say ultimately we all pay. The government doesn't have any separate money of its own. So how we make this transition will be a question of what's the right technology to do it, what's the right time frame to bring it in. And what we've seen actually is the cost of all of these things has come down over time as they become more widely adopted. We've seen that with offshore wind. We've seen it with electric vehicles.
So who's going to pay this 10,000 quid bill?
Well,
which your government will tell people to do.
Well, we haven't yet, right? So what we have
the plan.
Well, you're speculating on what might be the plan, and the point
everyone admits, including your own Climate Change Committee, that to meet net zero, you have to move from gas-fired heating in the home.
Right. And so what we know is the cost of the alternative to gas-fired heating are coming down every year and will continue to come down as more people use them.
Right, so through that whole clip, Rishi Sunak does his best to sugarcoat the fact that this will cost people untold thousands, not only in tax per person, but also doing what the government decides after your tax money has funded the research and development. You know, through subsidies to companies making this so-called green tech. That 1 trillion figure quoted in there is years old, and as per usual with government programs, its cost is massively underestimated. It will probably be closer to 3 or 4 trillion if you ask me. Now obviously there was so much more that Andrew Neil could have raked Sunak over the coals for in relation to this, but the boiler question is still a good one in my mind. As you know, many Tory voters will be paying for this shit show through tax and then with actual money as they're forced into upgrading their heating systems to push for net zero. The £10,000 figures quoted are obviously pure bullshit though. The heating systems being talked about are more like 20 or 30,000 to install, and let's be honest are piss poor to the current gas ones that we have. But I do have to say, Rishi Sunak talking about people are paying regardless just shows that they don't give a fuck what you think, and will do it anyway because it's not their money. As I've said, it's your money they're wanking down the toilet without a care in the world at this point. I mean, the idiot even contradicts himself when he says there will be new high-paying jobs, while a few moments later he states the tech is getting cheaper, meaning a race to the bottom on costs, which is hardly going to produce continuous high-paying jobs, is it? In fact, it will guarantee that automation comes in, which we know they want, and jobs will evaporate like a fart in the wind, much like the Tory party's conservative values have. At the end of the day, the cheaper shit sells for, the cheaper it needs to cost to manufacture. High-paying jobs and cheap don't go in the same sentence, do they, dickhead? He knows this, but obviously is just laughing in your face with this complete bollocks. Now obviously all of this is ignoring the fact that only a handful of countries have even signed up to this bollocks. They're still trying to convince many others who won't buy into it. Naturally, China, India and many others are going to tell them to go and fuck themselves on this, meaning any push for net zero in the UK is beyond pointless except as a money-making exercise. But shit, I would love to see these eco-warrior fuckpigs send Greta over to China so she can tell the CCP how dare you. We can only imagine how well that bullshit would go down over there. Shit, she might find herself being re-educated, which we all know she won't like. She much prefers skipping school while talking shit for the puppeteers. But guys, on that note, I'm going to end it there. Remember, my website and other links are down below in the video description, so check them out while the outro plays and let me know your thoughts in the comments section.